saying, hey, I got through this fresh school and I want to go in. And they're like, sure, go in. What's the discussion about? It's like, we'll have to take a loan. I'm like, okay, how much? It says 14 lakhs, which back then was a massive amount. And my dad's was, wow, you want to take a 14 lakh rupee loan for a 5-year-old school and a 1-year program when you have no idea of how this will change your life. And this is, by the way, the biggest loan that the Warikoo clan has ever taken in any generation. Are you sure about this? And I wasn't. But then I had to find a way of reconciling it in my head of whether I want to do it or not, which comes back to the question of how do we take risk. So here is how I thought about it. When I joined ISB, right before that I had a job that used to pay me 15,000 rupees in hand. That was my salary back then. Taking the 14 lakh rupee loan would have meant an EMI of 20,000 rupees. And I asked myself this question, if I get through ISB, what is the hope in hell that I will get a job that pays me at least 35,000 rupees in hand, which is the 15 that I get today and the 20 that I have to pay for the loan. And I found myself saying, yes, I can get that. And if I could, then anything else is additive. It's over what I expected, because that year of education is not going to be taken away just because I have a poor salary, but I know that this worst case scenario and being comfortable with that worst case scenario will make it happen for me. So I joined ISB. That year completely transformed me as an individual. For the first time, here is this physics geek who has virtually no idea about what the world is. I have no idea about marketing, I virtually know about finance, I hate accounting because I don't know, I don't understand IT, all I care about is just Newton's first, third laws. And I'm thrown into this ocean of super smart people. IIT gold medalists, fashion designers, lawyers, doctors, army majors, and so on. And all that I can do is just grasp. And that's what I did. I didn't pretend that I knew anything, because I didn't. And all that I knew was I just have to absorb. And I absorbed. At the end of the year, I got through a consulting job, which serendipitously was the best thing, but I didn't make it through McKinsey. I didn't make it through BCG. I didn't make it through Bain. I didn't make it through any of the fancy consulting firms that most people speak of, or Ashish is from, and so on. And I made it through TiECON. And TiECON was a completely unknown consulting firm for me. Only once I got through did I recognize that it's a globally reputed firm, because when I went for the interview, I was like, when do I get to meet TiECON? He's like, he's dead. So I had no idea about what that firm was. I jumped in and completely loved my experience. Exactly what Ashish spoke about. 27 years of age, flying business class, staying in 5-star hotels, consulting Fortune 500 companies, sitting face to face with CEOs that you would see the faces of on magazines and newspaper headlines, and suggesting, consulting them on how they should run their business was a fascinating experience. And I remember distinctly my first meeting ever with a Fortune 5 company CEO of India, where I had made a business model about their business and the 5-year projections, and he asked, what do you think is the growth rate for us as projected by you over the next 5 years? And I told him it's 19.87%. And he's like, you mean between 18 to 22%? He's like, no, I mean 19.87%. And he's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, because it's an Excel sheet that has told you it's 19.87%, but we always work in maths. And lessons and lessons and lessons. One fine evening, I'm hanging out with a friend of mine from ISB, and he's like, hey, I am working on a cool idea. And do you want to know about it? I said, sure. It's like, I'm working on this business or this website called secondshadi.com. Like, is it what I think it is? It's like, yeah, because think about it, there are 11 million marriages that take place in the country every year, and even with the lowest divorce rate in the world, that's a lot of people getting divorced. And there are enough people who get widowed. We have to find a way that they can get married again. So why don't we start a matrimonial website for remarriages, secondshadi.com. And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. We hadn't married, so we had no idea what first marriage is all about. Here we were, changing the destiny of people who wanted to marry again. We started secondshadi.com, and in the first week itself, it got lapped up by newspapers heralding us as social crusaders, transforming the way India looks at remarriages, particularly for women. So we're suddenly getting interviewed by social scientists on where did this idea come from and what are we doing to help the cause. And we were like, what cause? We're just a bunch of 27-year-olds trying to create a fun little startup. But the journey continued, we built it up, we built Gaadi.com, we built Study Nation and so on. And Gaadi.com became this really big success where we became India's largest automobile research classifieds website, and we then eventually sold it. So at that point of time, this is around 2010, my parents have kind of submitted to the fact that this is a maverick who gave up consulting and everything that came along with it to join something called secondshadi.com. So they kind of reconciled to that fact and I think given up on me. But then I come back again and say, hey, we just sold that Gaadi.com and I think I'm done with this and I want to move on to doing something next. They're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have no idea. And then one thing led to another, Groupon happened, and then we ran Groupon for 4 years. I was the Asia Pacific head for Groupon. But what eventually became very clear is that as big as the Groupon opportunity was, it's a massive company. It's $10 billion in sales, NASDAQ, publicly listed. Their focus on India and Europe, or India particularly, was very minuscule. Particularly whether in India, it was even lesser. So we were breathing and living the opportunity on a daily basis, but the ones in the US were like, yeah, we'll respond to you when we have to. So we did a completely audacious move. We went to Groupon US and we said, we want to buy you out. We want to buy the Groupon India business from you. And we want to run it independently like it's our own. You've given us birth, thank you so much. We're now adults, we want to move out of the house and create our own destiny. And of course their first response was, get the hell out of there. And of course, then adult conversations happened, and we finally pulled that off. It's the first management buyout of a 100% subsidiary of a publicly listed company in India, and today Nearby.com is a privately held company. But we went through a lot of struggle. In the last 2 years, because of several reasons, we had to lay off people, we had to figure our own market up, we got completely undercapitalized. We now recently got invested in by Paytm. We're back on our feet again. But over the course of all this, the things that have stayed with me is failure and thus success is something that almost always is imposed on you by the world. It's very rarely your own definition of what it should be. Every day, someone is trying to make you feel good or bad about your own self through their lens and their perspective. So, hey, you didn't make it through the IITs while you were a science student, you were a failure. Hey, you made it through IIT Kanpur or Kharagpur or Delhi or Bombay, you were a success. Hey, you got through McKinsey, you were awesome. Hey, you didn't get through, oh, you're horrible. Hey, you didn't get this X lakh rupee job, you're a failure. Hey, you got this much, you're a success. And every day, we are living, in my opinion, someone else's impression of us. Someone else's idea and world and perception of us. And the biggest lesson that I've learned as an entrepreneur and now as an individual, which I spend a lot of time talking about, is that do not allow the world to define your success and your failure. Your success and your failure is something that is immensely personal to you. And you have to have a conversation with no one except yourself to figure out what does it mean for you. It may mean that you're not the most ambitious person on earth, and you should be okay with it. It would mean that you are the most ambitious person and you don't care about family, friends, or anything else, and that should be okay for you. It would mean that you want to live in the Himalayas and not care about money, and that should be okay. Or you want to drive the latest Lamborghini and have no guilt or regret attached to it, and that should be okay for you. Let no one rule what success or failure is for you. And there was a fascinating question asked, which is, how does one know whether one is an entrepreneur or not. I have an admission that entrepreneurship is a state of mind. It's not an occupation, it's not a profession. I love what was stated. People think that being an entrepreneur is owning a company and making money and all that. Yes, it's attached to it. But get rid of the fanciness. Get rid of the fanciness. Today, being an entrepreneur is super cool. It's sexy. People know how to pronounce the word entrepreneur. There was a time when they didn't. I come from an era where being an entrepreneur meant you didn't get a job. And that's why you chose to do something on your own, because no one was willing to accept you. But today it's fancy. Is it real? Most likely not. Do you think like an entrepreneur is the question you have to ask. Because if you think like one, I can assure you, you can be successful wherever you are, whether it's your job, it's your family, it's your fatherhood, motherhood, anything else. But thinking like one will set you on the task of what you wish to be, and not the fact that you own a startup or anything else. I'll close with, well, no, never mind. I think I'll leave it here because that could be a long story nonetheless. I've been blessed with 2 kids. One is a 6-year-old son and a 6-month-old daughter. And suddenly my world's changed, because now I'm just thinking of what is the condition and the mental state and the context with which I want to raise these 2 kids. Because I am deeply, deeply troubled by how the world's system of raising kids is. As was pointed out, most of our education system is exactly the pain point I identified. Someone in class, someone in a lecture hall, someone at work will define things for you. They will say, answer these 5 questions, and if you do it well, you're successful. Do these 5 things for me and check them off, and if you do it, you're successful. Get these 5 courses done and these 5 projects done, and then you're successful. And we are disguised into believing that that is what life should be all about, because it will give us the title we want, it will give us the money that we need, it will send us on the vacation that we want, the kids to school, and all that fancy thing. But at the end of it, you are living someone else's life. So it's become almost a life mission for me to figure out how is it that I want to raise these kids, because I almost feel immensely responsible, not just as a father, but as someone who ought to or should tell them of what real life is all about. And the best thing that I can give them, which I would give to you as well, not because it's come from me, first principle, but that's the only thing that I can share is my own experience, is just become comfortable with who you are. And it's as difficult or easy as I just said it. If you are comfortable with who you are, no one can defeat you. But it's the hardest thing to do. Because if I asked you all, how much time do you generally spend with your own self every day? The answer will be virtually nothing. We think we do, but we don't. Outside of the distraction, the social media, the notifications, the people and whatnot, everything else is just how much time do you spend with your own self, thus knowing yourself. And if you can't, then you're not true to yourself. My son's name is Vidur, and the best experience that I've had with him is asking him, Vidur, tum bade hoke kya banna chahte ho? And he responds, main bade hoke main banna chahta hu. Thank you.
Excellent. I think there was a common thread of what Ashish spoke about and what Ankur talked about, and which tells you about the purpose of doing something. When he left his education in between, he wanted to get there. He was trying to find the purpose, but I don't really know why does it take you so much time to find that. So, Ankur, what would be your advice to folks who are starting up, and there are a lot of budding entrepreneurs sitting here? What would be your advice to them in shortening that cycle? You know, the concept of fast failing and reinventing. What would be your advice to them?
There's a favorite question that I ask all entrepreneurs that come and present an idea to me, which is, how come this hasn't happened already? It's a very simple question and a very tough one to answer. How is it that you're sitting in front of me, almost convincing me that this has happened for the first time in the world? Because that's not true. And there are 3 responses to this question. Response 1 is, it's happened already, I just don't know of it. Response 2 is, it's happened already and it's died out, and I ought to know about it. And response 3, which in my opinion has never happened in my life, is no one has actually thought of this ever before. And it's amazing how many people fool themselves into believing that option 3 is the right option. Like, it's ridiculous how many people give themselves more credit than they deserve. I don't think I'm smart than anyone else in this room, so I will never assume that my idea is the best idea ever and no one's thought about it. In my experience, 60% of the times, these ideas have already happened and they have failed. There's a systematic reason why